Welcome to OsteoWarriors, that's with a capital TEA. We're OsteoWarriors in treatment and recent survivors. Spill the tea on all things osteosarcoma and cancer from the adolescent young adult patient perspective. Listen in on our honest and personal conversations about our osteo experiences, stories, and who knows what else. We can get off track sometimes, but it'll always be a good time. This podcast discusses all aspects of the young adult cancer experience in a conversational format. Audience discretion is advised. Please like and follow MIB agents on social media for all the intel and hot goss. Sammy, how was DC?
It was super great. So we had a couple of the junior advisory board members go to DC to climb Capitol Hill and talk to congressmen and women and their staff to potentially be able to share stories. And that's exactly what happened. We were with a bunch of really amazing kids who have had multiple different types of cancer, not just osteo, bunch of different ages, so young, like really awful that cancer affects kids. It's just that's what we were there for. We climbed the hill, we talked about the Give Kids a Chance Act, and we told them why it was important to pass this. And Congress heard us, and they actually ended up voting on it. And on September 23rd, which was a Monday, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Give Kids a Chance Act, which also includes the Creating Hope Reauthorization Act. And this act is important because it ensures, I know, super exciting, big win. It's really nice to know that when we share our stories, that it does make a difference and it is impactful. Like, we are the ones that they want to hear from. And this act ensures that kids with cancer will have studies of combinations of new cancer drugs. And this is massive because finding new combinations of drugs is the best way to find new treatments and cures for these kids. The next steps include passage of the bill through the Senate and then a signature from the president, and then it would become law. So super exciting, really great. I think we all had a really great time, very eye-opening, and it's just emphasizes that our voices matter and what we do matters. So advocating is really important. Another announcement we have is that November's coming up. Obviously, we're still in October, but in November, Outbarking Osteosarcoma will begin. And that's the campaign where we usually will sell bandanas for, I don't remember exactly how much it is, but you give a donation and then you get a really cute bandana for your dogs, because actually osteosarcoma is more prevalent in dogs than it is in people. That's something that's not talked about enough. Poor little doggies are also affected by osteosarcoma. So stay tuned for more information on that. And one last thing is we finally have our Factor location for Factor 2025. Super exciting. We're taking this thing to Salt Lake City, Utah. It's June 26th to 28th, so mark your calendars. Hopefully you all can come. Super, super excited. Like, again, just advocating to the max and being able to talk to all these people and also being able to connect with other OsteoWarriors is so exciting. So we're super, super excited and looking forward to that for next year.
Thank you so much, Sammy, for giving us all the exciting things that are happening. I am absolutely thrilled about everything that went down in DC. You guys, it seemed like everyone had an amazing trip, and it just seemed like bipartisanship, I feel like, is so rare these days. And it's one of the few things that everyone can get behind is giving kids a chance and stamping out cancer once and for all, hopefully. So we are all doing good, and I am so proud of each and every one of you, and so proud to be a member of MIB. So let's get into our spooky Halloween season episode. Today we're going to be talking just a little bit about some spooky things that have happened to us in the hospital and during treatment and how we coped. We can also talk about some Halloween stuff. It's basically just going to be a really great episode centered around kind of this October fall theme, and just getting all of our stories. So welcome back, everybody, and let's start with our favorite and only segment. What's the tea? No, like literally. So we're going to go around and share what preferably tea or beverage we are drinking and give a review and rate it. So I'm going to start. So my name is Mia. I'm 25. I'm from LA. I am currently doing a cannabis studies online certificate program at Syracuse. It's fully online, so I can do that from home in LA. and it's been really, really helpful so far. I'm focusing on the medicinal aspects, and how it kind of plays in with cancer. So that's been pretty cool. I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma in September of 2018. I have 15 inches of metal in my leg. His name is Rodney. Because of Rodney, I was a shark attack victim. I put fake blood all over my scar, wore a shirt that said "I'm fine" and had a shark hand puppet. And I was a shark attack victim. And so people thought I did a really great job with special effects on the scar, not knowing it was a real scar. So that's a little spooky thing that I did with my scar. And today I'm drinking a black spice tea, but iced because it is 106 degrees. I'm only wearing this sweatshirt because the AC is blasting. And I am going to rate it a solid 10 out of 10. It is making me feel much better today, and it's very refreshing while also giving me a little boost. So yeah, Sammy, you want to tell us what you're drinking?
Yes, I'll go next. So, my name is Sammy. I'm 22 years old. I'm also from Southern California. I would say about like an hour or so outside of LA. I'm currently pursuing a degree in biology. And I mean, right now I dedicate a lot of my time to MIB because I'm the MIB Junior Advisor Board President. Freaking love it. I love all the members of the board. Super, super fun. I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma at the age of 19 in August of 2022. I had a tumor on my right tibia, right underneath my knee, and I underwent treatment until May of 2023. And then halfway through that, I underwent a limb salvage surgery. So then, after obviously, the limb salvage happened after October, so after Halloween, but I was bald and I dressed up as Charlie Brown. So yeah, that was pretty good. I loved it. Yeah,
That's good.
I'll send you guys pictures after.
Please
But
do.
yeah, I was bald. I drew a little curl in my forehead. Like it's like Halloween can be really fun. So I enjoyed being able to dress up and embrace my baldness. Um, I finished treatment May of 2023, and I have been NED ever since, thankfully. I also have a rod in my leg. Mine's name is Tiffany, but like spelled like knee. Yeah. So there's Rodney and Tiffany.
They're
I'm
actually
currently
twins.
drinking. Yeah, we're twins. Yeah. I'm drinking cinnamon tea, and it's pretty good. I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. I would take away 2 points just because it is hot, and like Mia was saying, it's like super hot outside right now. So like it's not ideal to be drinking hot tea. I should have thought about that when I was making my tea, but it's still good. It's still good. I'll pass it along to MacKenzie if you'd like to go next.
Hi, my name is MacKenzie. I'm 18 years old and a senior in high school. I live in Arkansas. I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma in 2020, so right when COVID was happening, which is kind of good for me because everyone was wearing masks, so I didn't have to worry about all of that. And everybody was staying indoors, so that was nice. Had 9 months of treatment and a surgery in the middle. We started with cadaver bone, and we did that for a couple times, even though screws kept breaking, it got infected, and we eventually just decided to switch to a rod like you guys have. Um, and then I am drinking a Gatorade Zero because I can't have that much sugar right now. And I'd give it an 8 out of 10. An 8 because I used to drink this with my meds, and I literally couldn't drink it for a year afterwards just because it would make me gag so much. I'm gonna pass it on to Gillian.
Hi, I'm Gillian. I'm 18 years old. I'm from New York City, and right now I'm a freshman in the Brown RISD dual degree program. Um, which is so exciting because now I'm like living on my own. I have a roommate, and both of us are in the middle of a huge charcoal project from separate teachers. But basically every single night we're just covered in charcoal, like our hands are permanently gray for the next 24 hours. So that's what I'm up to. I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma when I was 11 years old. That was in sixth grade, so 2018. No, December 2017, actually. I went through the normal MAP chemotherapy procedure, but I had a distraction osteogenesis procedure on my leg, which involved 9 surgeries, I believe. Yeah, so that was essentially regrowing my bone rather than having a replacement. And that just means more surgeries, but it's a little bit more long term. So hopefully I won't be having any more surgeries in the next few decades of my life. Um, Yeah. And I have a mango green tea with me. Someone got it for me, which is so nice of them. It's yellow because during treatment, I could not drink yellow things because it reminded me of the color of methotrexate. But now I can drink it, and it's just so much fun. Also, I thought of like a cancer related Halloween costume, which was in 7th grade. I dressed up as 11 from Stranger Things because I was still bald. And that was when Stranger Things was like really taking off. So I think people liked it. I had the dress and everything, but it was really fun. And I'll give it to Matthew. Yeah.
Hey there, guys. So I am Matthew. Pardon me for my voice. I had a little bit of a fun day yesterday, so I might have a little bit of a sore throat. Yeah, I am from Wisconsin. I don't know if you guys can hear it in the accent, so apologies if I have a stronger accent. But yeah, so I am 22 years old. I had osteosarcoma when I was a freshman year of high school, and I actually had it in my left humerus. And so I've had 2 limb salvage surgeries. The first one was in November of that year, where I had a donor humerus come in, and then it actually was not able to incorporate well with my shoulder. So I actually had on the lower leg, my tibia, I'm so sorry, because it's not weight bearing. They took it out of my left leg, and then they canoed it into my donor humerus. So I have a bit of my tibia in here, and yeah, but I really like it. It works relatively okay. And I'm able to run just great. So yeah, I in terms of costumes, I don't remember if I wore anything. I remember there's a lot of Mr. Cleans in my in my when I was in treatment. I don't remember wearing anything, but yeah. And I love tea. I woke up today, I was gonna make Don Chon, which is my favorite kind of tea. However, my faucet does not work, so I was not able to brew tea. But I got the next best thing. This is a bubbler. This is a very Wisconsin thing. We call water fountains bubblers here. And so it's kind of like a Celsius. It's like a play on words. I would rate it a 9 out of 10. It has caffeine, gets me going, but it's not my favorite flavor. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. What I don't understand is there need to be more pit bulls. Like we need to like there need to be more pit bull Halloween costumes for cancer patients. Like I'm a huge fan of Pitbull, both because of his music and the activism that he does. He's actually a great guy. There's a few documentaries out there about him that are really great. Highly recommend looking into it. Random tangent. But I think it's just really fun because when we have all this time, we have time to be creative, and it's like, okay, we literally have a blank slate. You know what I mean? Like when I was in the hospital, I don't know if you all did this too, but there were a lot of early mornings, obviously, and I'm not normally a morning person. And my doctors knew, after knowing me for a few years, not to disturb me between the hours of 9 and 11 a.m. on weekdays. Weekends, anything goes, but weekdays, I need those. The answer is that The Price is Right and Let's Make a Deal were on at 9 and 10. And so I watched like every day. And my mom said to me, when you're done with treatment, why don't we see if we can become contestants on the shows? Because we live in LA. So we made it to the audience for The Price is Right, but we did actually become contestants for Let's Make a Deal back in 2019. My cancer metastasized after that, but we thought I was NED at the time. I've always been a huge fan of Wayne Brady, the comedian. He is just hysterical. He's an LGBTQ plus icon. He's just an amazing comedian. I love him very much. And his musical chops are great too. He actually won one season of The Masked Singer. Anyway, I got to go on Let's Make a Deal, which is hosted by him, and we were the first contestants of the episode. And for Let's Make a Deal, you have to wear a costume, and I was fully bald at the time. And actually never had a Halloween where I was bald, and I really wish I would because I have so many ideas. But my hair was usually falling out in the spring, so not usually then. But I was a pirate, and so I had the coat, and I just wore some black leggings and some pins. And then one of my family friends was in town, and we used up an entire liquid eyeliner pen because we drew on an eye patch and then proceeded to wrap it all the way around my head. So my eye was open. So obviously it was just like a giant black spotter on my eye. And then we had the hat. So then I tipped my hat, and you could see that it went all the way around. And it was definitely a crowd favorite. My mom went as an 80s girl. She won $1,500. And then I won about $5,700 worth of designer accessories, which was awesome. But the woman who, so at the end of the episode, you can go for the big deal. And with the big deal, it's usually like trips or a car or a large amount of cash. So I was like, okay, the woman who has the most expensive prize ahead of me has a car. So she's not going to go for the big deal. So I ended up going for the big deal at the end of the episode. And I promise this is relevant to osteosarcoma because I had to like go up and down these stairs to get mic'd up. And it's like, there's no railings. It's a game show. They're not, thinking about this. And they're like, are you going to be able, to stand up there? And I'm like, yeah, I'll be fine. Rodney was only about 8 months old at the time. So this was still relatively new to me, and it was really warm in the studio. But everyone was so welcoming and so kind, and everyone was, cheering us on. And, I said I was going to go for the big deal, and I picked door number 2 because my mom and I are the dynamic duo. And door number 3 had 2 trips, one to Ireland and the other to Tahiti, I believe. 2 places I have not been before, so I was really bummed that I missed out on that. But door number 2 had 2 bicycles. I have a right lower leg limb salvage, and I was never taught how to ride a bike pre-cancer. So not only did I not know how to ride a bike, I now have 2 very nice bicycles that I do not know how to ride, and that I wouldn't even probably be allowed to learn how to ride for fear of breaking my new internal prosthesis. So when the camera's cut, I double over laughing because what, what are you gonna do?
That's
They're like,
crazy.
yeah. And so Wayne Brady looks at me and he's like, why are you laughing so hard? Are you happy about the bikes? And I said, Wayne, I don't know how to ride a bike, and I just had 15 inches of metal put in my leg. I had bone cancer. And he doubles over laughing. So to make a comedic legend laugh is one of the highlights of my life. And he said to me, what are you going to do? And I said, learn, I guess. And it's been about 5 years, and we got rid of the bikes. So I did not learn. If Wayne Brady, for some reason, is watching this somehow, I'm sorry that I gave up the bikes, but the story in and of itself is worth more than them, in my opinion. And yeah, that's one of my best costume osteo stories.
We'll have to find a way to get this podcast to him. So once this
To
airs,
Wayne
I'm
Brady.
going to be sending it to him. Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly.
He's gonna watch, yeah.
Yes. So yeah, my question for all of you, and please feel free to buzz in or just answer uh, on the subject of game shows. What do you feel was a spooky thing that happened during your treatment? Like what really spooked you? It could be like a haunting spooky or just something that was a little bit traumatic and scary for you and your family, and kind of how you coped with it or kind of the outcome. I know this can be a little deep and a little, hard for people, so take your time. And we'd love to hear what you have to say. So whoever wants to go first. Yeah.
I'll go first. This actually happened kind of recently, but it's an osteo thing because it was another like leg revision. I had broken some screws multiple times. First time I broke one, and then like 3 months later, after it was fixed, broke 2 more, and that was with the cadaver bone. And so we just decided to take all of that out and put the rod in. And for that, that's kind of a big surgery. You're taking all this stuff out, putting all this stuff in. So they gave me an epidural, right? And the problem was when I woke up, I was in so much pain. They gave me some morphine, and then 5 minutes later, I was in pain again, and they gave me some more morphine. And then later to find out the epidural did not work at all. And then they tried to fix it later and give me more medicine. They had repositioned it, and it just numbed my good leg. So now I couldn't get up on my good leg and do anything. I was just bound to the bed. And then my bad leg was still hurting. So that was one of my stories. So if someone else wants to go before I share another one.
I
That's
just
so scary. That's like beyond traumatizing. Oh my gosh. Like the one thing that the epidural was for didn't do it, you know, like
and epidurals first and foremost are obviously lifesavers, but at the same time, they're so weird because I remember when I had my leg surgery, my epidural was fine. But when I had my thoracotomies and I had, one at a time, they didn't do a double. And they actually made mine really close together, which was really scary because it was March of 2020. What a great time to have lung surgery. When especially at UCLA, which is great. I love UCLA. They're my hospital. I love them. I love all my doctors. But they were obviously one of the biggest hospitals in the States, so they were overrun with COVID, and I'm, quarantined up in peds, like, with a freshly operated on lung. They're like, okay, your next surgery is in May. This was in March. And they gave me 11 hours of notice that my surgery had been moved up. It was like 6:30 p.m. I had to be at the hospital by 5:30 a.m. the next morning. They moved my surgery up because they didn't know what the COVID surges were going to look like. So my surgeries were actually only 3 weeks apart when they were supposed to be closer to like 8 to 10.
Mhm.
Usually they like to space out the thoracotomies more. So that was pretty scary. And I remember it did numb my abdomen. And I just remember like it just felt so weird and numb, but I still felt so itchy. I don't know if you guys get really itchy from the opioids, but I just want to rip my skin off. And it's even worse with the
Yes.
epidural. So it's
Mhm.
like this double-edged sword of, yes, I won't be in pain, but oh my God, give me all the Benadryl you have. Even though I did learn this, fentanyl will not be countered by Benadryl in terms of the itchiness. There's something about the way it binds to receptors, um, that the Benadryl will not help with the itchiness. So all other opioids, I think it does, but Benadryl does not help for fentanyl. Fun fact. Hope none of you ever end up in a situation like that again, but just a fun little tip.
That's
Um,
good to know. That's honestly really good to know. That's so crazy. Like it's the timing to have like a thoracotomy at like peak COVID, like when the world was shutting down and everything was like falling apart and stuff. That must have been really, really, really scary. I don't know, Gillian, I think you had unmuted like around the same time as MacKenzie. I don't know if you want to share a spooky story.
I have a couple, like less spooky stories or anything like that, but just like weird stories. I feel like I've mentioned my surgeon a lot. Just to be fair, I love my surgeon. He's great. He's just very positive often. So, he left a drill bit in my leg once. He burned me in the OR. I'm not exactly sure if it was him, but I got burned in the OR. I woke up, huge bandage on my leg. I was like, "What happened?" And he was like, "Oh, we burned you. Oops." And
That's crazy.
yeah, he also did a couple other things. The screws in my leg got broken like 5 times probably, which was not his fault. It was just like flimsy. But then there was one time where he was like, so you're actually behind on schedule when we are like re-extending the bone in your leg to regrow it. And he's like, we're gonna have to regrow 2 millimeters today, like right now. And like to put things in perspective, we would do at that point probably like a full millimeter like once in a full day. So it'd be like 4 sessions like throughout the day. But then this was like 2 millimeters like in this little like 30-minute period. So that was just like insanity. Um, so those are like times where he just gave me a bit of a shock. But then like during chemotherapy, I had the craziest roommate. This is unrelated to my surgeon. I had the craziest roommate. I just thought of this like because it's kind of related to Halloween, but she screamed all the time, like 24/7. And I thought she was dying the whole time. And then later I found out she was screaming because she was scared of them taking out her IV, like
Oh my
pulling it out of
gosh,
her
yeah.
leg. So yeah, I think like at that point I was just like I would wake up and she would be screaming. So that would just be like something that spooked the hell out of me. But like, yeah, Every
I
once
mean,
in a while, my family like references her. We just call her the screamer, or occasionally like something a little bit more mean, but it's just a funny story to look back on.
I mean, I feel like in that environment too, being in the hospital and just hearing screaming in itself, like that's pretty like scary. Especially like we have roommates. Like I would have a roommate, but I would have a curtain. You don't always know what's going on the other side. So you just hear the screaming or the crying and stuff. So that can be like kind of spooky. Especially if you were saying
Yeah,
that like
yeah.
this would happen sometimes like at night and stuff too. Like that would definitely throw me. I would probably scream
Yeah.
with them, honestly, just I'm an empath, so like I would have to join them, but
Exactly, exactly. You just want to just start doing it yourself.
yeah,
Communal
exactly,
communal hospital scream time. Why not?
Yeah,
You
like
know, I mean,
Exactly.
together.
We're all
Yeah.
being traumatized right now. Why not just
exactly.
scream?
College campuses do it during finals. Why can't we do it in the hospital?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
I
was
think that
told,
should be implemented.
yeah, I think so too. I was actually one of my like spooky stories. I guess like this was like pretty scary. So I had like my limb salvage surgery in November of 2022. And immediately following that, 'cause it's a pretty lengthy procedure, obviously also like super painful. Like they're cutting our bone and replacing it and then shoving a rod in there. Like it's painful. It's a lot. And I remember waking up and I was obviously numb. I had like a block and it started to wear off. And then I wasn't getting any type of pain medication. And then they told me because my surgery wasn't at the main hospital, it was at a different hospital, just like right down the road. They were like, oh, once you get to the actual pediatric unit, that's when you're going to get your medication. Like, we're not the ones, like, they said they were going to take care of that for you. So then at this point, it had been hours and it was starting to wear off and like you feel it. So I was in like excruciating pain and they moved me via ambulance, which was awful. Like just like being moved. Oh my gosh. Like I remember it so vividly. But I got to the hospital and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, they told me that you were going to give me medication. And they were like, actually, your surgeon was supposed to take care of that, not us. So we're actually not prepared for you. And like, I really liked the hospital that I was treated at Loma Linda. But this was just crazy. Like you guys just took my bone and then shoved a rod in me and you expect me to like not need Medicare. I don't know. There was just a miscommunication. And instead of trying to figure out my medication, they were just arguing about whose fault it is. And I was like, I don't really care whose fault it is. Like, I just need you guys to like give me something. Like I'd even like settle for an ibuprofen of some sort. Like I was just desperate for relief. And I was like screaming and hollering. And I actually had a nurse there who like she was not my friend. She told me that I needed to calm down. And I was like, you should go and have your bone cut and removed and then have them shove a rod in there. And then you tell me if like you'd want someone to tell you to calm down. Like put yourself in my shoes for a second. But I think that was one of the scariest experiences for me because it took like hours. Like I was in excruciating pain for hours after my surgery. And then finally they gave me a bunch of medication and it was to the point where it was too much. And I actually don't remember like 2 to 3 weeks post surgery because I was so out of it because they gave me too much of everything. So, and that's another story separate, just the whole high doses of medication causing you to have like hallucinations and stuff. So I'll save that one. But I think next, let's see if we could hear from Matthew. Do you have any spooky stories to share with us?
Well, my spooky story was kind of hallucinations. I would say my times after limb salvage surgeries, it's kind of like a Christopher Nolan film where I was on so much medications that I didn't know what was reality and what was just I was dreaming. And I know, like you might think, oh, you're on so many drugs, pain medications. Oh, are you like envision you flying or whatever? No, I dreamed of doing housework all the time. All the time. I would do the dishes. I would be at home. I like do the dishes and then I would clean the house and then I would wake up and I'm like, "Oh my God, I didn't do any of that in real life."
Not you being productive while like that's
I
crazy.
know. Well,
That's so
imagine,
funny
Definitely
though.
nightmare worthy though.
I know, yeah. Well, yeah, like imagine, because after you do chores, you're a little tired, but you feel satisfied. Took all the satisfaction away. Just like, and then also another thing, I because this is probably like, because I was in the hospital about for 2 weeks after the surgery, about like 14 days after surgery, just kind of in bed. And since I had so many, real life, really vivid dreams, I need to go to the bathroom one time. And, since I had, it was both well, at that time it was just my shoulder, but, I had so many tubes coming from my shoulder. I was all, hooked up. And then since I thought it was a dream, I was like, oh, I'm just going to go to the bathroom. And so I get up and just like carry all my like tubing and all that just out of bed. And then apparently alarm went off, and one of my nurses was just like, she was my favorite. She was like, Matthew, what are you doing? Just like she just stood there like, what is going on? But yeah, I would say that was kind of the spookiest of my stories, just because that was a time where I was like, is this a dream? Please don't make me do more housework. Just like stuff like that.
I think people don't realize like how much medication we're put on, and it really does cause hallucinations and disorientation and stuff. Like you really do believe that things are happening when they're not. Like for me during that time, like since we're on the topic of hallucinations, like these stories are kind of funny. Once my pain was managed, I was on high doses of medication that were causing me to have hallucinations, and I was super disoriented. Like for one, the room that I was in did not look the same. Like I thought it looked so different. Like I was in like this suite, like it was a really nice room. And then when I regained like consciousness, I guess I was like, why am I in the ghetto? Like what I thought I was in a really nice room, and it was just me hallucinating. But also during those couple weeks, I mean, it was always my mom, my sister at the hospital with me, and I don't really remember this, but they would tell me like there was three specific instances. One of them was obviously once you have like your limb salvage surgery, they usually give you a catheter for a while because we obviously can't get up to use the restroom. And I had a catheter, and obviously like they stick it to the inside of your leg with like little stickers, like band-aids, but they were kind of shaped like butterflies. And I would freak out every time I would see it because I guess I would tell them that butterflies were flying into me, which like that was not happening, but I was trying to yank the catheter out. So every time that would happen, they would have to like sedate me. Like they would put me to sleep because they were like, you were trying to yank out your catheter again. And then another time I kept seeing this I do kind of remember. There was a little man who would run in and out of my room. Like a tiny little man out of nowhere. Sometimes it was at night and stuff, and I would holler. I would be like, the little man's back, the little man's back, and I would push my call button. I know the nurses wanted to take that call button from me because the amount of times I would call them and say, he's in the room, he's here, he's right there in the corner. Like I could see the little man. And he wasn't even scary, but he would just bug me because he would come up out of nowhere. And he was like all up in my business. And I was like, get out of my room, like my presidential suite, like, 'cause it was really nice in my head. So he was my little friend. I would always talk about the little man that would come in and out of my room. He would never do anything, but he would just bug me with his presence. And the last thing was right above my bed, there was one of those sprinklers, like the ones in case of like fires and stuff. I don't know why. I've always had this weird like obsession with like squirrels and like chipmunks and stuff. I thought it was a chipmunk or a squirrel. And I kept telling my sister she had to catch it and release it because he's stuck. And it would bother me because obviously like we're laying there, we see the same thing over and over again. Every time I would pay attention to that, I would get upset because I was like, you need to catch it, you need to free the squirrel. Like he should not be trapped in here and stuff. So, but it felt so real. Like how Matthew was saying, it feels real. And then it gets to a point sometimes that you don't know what's real and what's not real. Like I would be awake and I wasn't sure if things were actually happening or if it was just in my head. And then also with like Benadryl and stuff, like I would have the craziest freaking dreams on Benadryl. Benadryl dreams are different. And it was also disorienting because everything, all the medications I was on were just causing me to like lose my grip from reality. And it can be kind of scary sometimes. Then other times it can be kind of silly, like the little man, like that was pretty funny. But then also I know it got really old really fast because it was like multiple times a day that I would do this to the nurses. And they were fed up, I know, but they were so patient. Love all my nurses that took care of me. I know they had a good laugh too. And then once I like regained consciousness, they were telling me all these stories and stuff that I said and stuff that I did. And I was like, no, that wasn't me. That couldn't have been me. Like, I don't remember it.
Are you sure you weren't just being trolled by a very persistent leprechaun? This is a legitimate question.
I don't know. Like, maybe they were actually sending a little man into my room just to mess with me. And
Just
then,
a
like,
vibe
just,
check, just
yeah,
that's just a second pair of eyes on you, like a
yeah,
non-medical bias point of view.
yeah. He was a non-threatening little man. Like, I can't say I didn't like him. It's just like we were fine. He never did anything to me, but he was just always in my business. And he would come into my room, he would touch my stuff, and it would make me really mad. And then come to find out he wasn't there. So then I was like beefing with a figment of my imagination, and that was like pretty funny. It was pretty like afterwards. In retrospect, I'm like, yeah, I miss him sometimes. I miss my little man. It gets lonely, and I'm like, I wish he would run into my room right now so we could hang out.
He's just vibing with your hallucination, man.
Yeah.
I feel like the summary, the main point to take away from these stories is that human error is the scariest thing of all.
Yes,
In my
absolutely.
opinion. I think it's absolutely terrifying, and hallucinations are so real, and I feel like it's a topic that we haven't touched on a lot, in all season 3. I should know. I've been hosting the whole time. I don't know what time is. Anyway, I love osteo. I don't think we've talked about hallucinations much, and I feel like that's a great thing to touch on. So I remember, well, I don't really remember that well. It's mostly through stories. In October of 2021, so that all of 2021, I had been on an immunotherapy known as nivolumab. Again, we're not medical professionals. This is just my experience. And it's an immunotherapy drug that's used for lung cancer. And so they had me on it, and they were like, all right, well, what can happen is it can make your immune system start attacking your organs, but it usually happens to your heart. So we're just going to, we're just going to watch that for a while. I was like, okay. And they're like, it can also raise your liver enzymes. So we're going to be keeping an eye on those too. I'm like, okay. And so my heart's fine. My liver enzymes skyrocket. And so they put me on a bunch of really high dose steroids. Like I'm sure we've all been on steroids, like dexamethasone, or you know what I mean, that one. Some of, like the bladder protectants, and I feel like prednisone or methylprednisone is the most common steroid that they give to us. I was getting at one point up to 300 milligrams of IV steroids a day in the hospital. So I grew a goatee. I gained a bunch of water weight, and I went from my kind, gentle-natured self to a combination of a vibrating chihuahua and the Incredible Hulk. And I was just mean, and it was really not fun. But during this, because steroids can decrease your immune system, uh, my immune system essentially went to zero, just like if I were in chemo, even though I wasn't on technically any systemic treatment because I had to stop the immunotherapy after my liver enzymes got weird. And what ended up happening is E. coli from my gut, from my stomach, traveled up somehow. They think I might have like coughed or aspirated. They're not really sure how it happened, but it did. E. coli got into my left lung and settled there and started colonizing there. We don't like colonizers. Anyway, they colonized in my lung, and I ended up with pneumonia, and my left lung collapsed. And so I woke up in the middle of the night with a heavy wet cough. And apparently I kept saying to my mom, no, we don't need to go to the ER. I just have COVID. Don't you remember me testing positive today? And my mom was like, you don't have COVID. That never happened. Um, and so we went to the hospital, and sure enough, I was going into septic shock. And so it was a big COVID spike at the time. So they didn't let my mom in the ER with me. So I was really freaked out. My breathing kept getting worse and worse. I kept feeling dizzier and dizzier, before they, finally figured out what was wrong with me. And then they were like, we're going to put you on a ventilator. Great. Was out of that 6 days later. And then, was in the ICU for an extra 2 days, and then they moved me to my normal pediatric floor. Now, at this point, it was 2021 October, so I'd been a UCLA patient for 3 years, so I know the nurses so well because I went to UCLA Santa Monica. It's a smaller hospital. It's honestly like a really fancy hotel. Like I love, like it's like the nicest hospital I've ever seen. But I love it there. I love the nurses and my doctors. And one of my favorite nurses walked in, who I'd known since the very beginning. She was one of the only ones who was, like still there and active, during that time. And I didn't recognize her. and I didn't even know her name. And other than that, all my, levels and stuff were pretty normal. I had to be on IV antibiotics through the rest of the year, but at least I could do some of that at home. And I couldn't even remember her name. And then so they were asking me all these questions. And this is spooky in the sense of, hallucinations and my mom. And I kept seeing things and not believing what was real and what wasn't real. And it was just totally this time warp. I was calling my friends at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking it was 3 p.m. and then that it was completely normal. Turns out I had ICU delirium, which is a real thing. And so I was completely delirious. I had no idea what time it was ever. I couldn't understand the concept of time. Um, so we have 7 pets right now. At the time, I think we had 5. And they were like, what are the names of your pets? And 2 of the pets that I would list usually would be pets who have passed. And so my mom was like, no, he died 3 years ago. Like, so it was really spooky and scary. Thankfully I got over it within a few weeks and with, medication and psychiatric help and things like that. But it was so scary for all of us because it was just like, okay, I just got out of septic shock. Like there were like 3 of the nights I was on the vent, they told my mom that I probably wasn't going to make it through the night. So, this was a super scary time for my friends and family. And my mom couldn't even tell some of my friends because being 21, October 2021, so I was 22. All my friends being 22 have stupid contact names like little B word Sigmund or who is my friend who is a psychology major. So, Freud. And things like Onion Girl or like Peppa Pig Girl, like really random, obscure inside jokes. And my poor mom is going through my phone, like, I don't even know how to tell the people she cares about that she might be dying and that they need to come out here. And so it was just this really kind of chaotic time. And when I was home, one of the home health care nurses came. She's like, can you tell me what day of the week it is? And I start singing A, B, C, D. I got to H before anyone stopped me. And,
Close
and
enough,
I'm just so
honestly. Close enough. Yeah.
it's yeah. I mean, at least I know my alphabet, I guess, at 22 while delirious. But it was definitely this super duper weird time. And I remember one of the scariest things I know that before we started recording, we talked a little bit about how crazy football has been this week. The day of recording is Sunday, October 6th. There was a crazy Ravens Bengals game this morning. There was some crazy college upsets. I'm a big football fan, so a lot of that. And I went to the University of Washington before I was diagnosed, big football school. And I my mom had turned on one of the games on one of the Saturdays that I was home. And she knew I was in trouble when I asked her, what is this sport? I thought they were playing soccer. I was like, why are we watching soccer? Like, what is this? She was like,
Both
this is
technically
your
football, depending on where you live.
It again, yes. So I can see where you're totally right. Where the synapses were connecting. But at the same time, it was just absolutely crazy that a team that I essentially worship, to me, it was just like, why are we watching this soccer game? So it's just really crazy how all these medications do that to us. And it's like, to this day, I'm still very mentally sharp and I'm very witty. So I'm quick with the wordplay and things like that. But my mental processing skills are just not what they used to be. And I feel like, people talk about chemo brain or chemo fog and things like that, but it's all the medications we've been on for so long. And I feel like it's kind of like this underrepresented topic that, we do have all this, like, we have these mental effects that will probably follow us for the rest of our lives. And that's what's really, crazy. And it can be really scary at times because you're like, when you're in high school and or when you're in college, you're like, okay, I want to do the best that I can to get ahead. And I feel like cancer is this ultimate vibe check where it's like it makes you realize what's most important to you, but it's also going to completely alter you for the rest of your life. And that in and of itself is just terrifying. So having all these silly costumes and these stories and sharing them with each other, this is the way for us to move forward. And I think it's such a beautiful thing. And I think it ties into DC too, and how our stories really do make a difference, no matter how silly they are or how traumatic they are. And I feel like that's why this is one of my favorite episodes that we do, because we really get to share the good, the bad, the ugly, the crazy, the silly, and it makes us more whole. You know, if you just lean on the depressing or if you just lean on the uplifting, you don't get the full story. This, us being here today, is the full story. And so I just, again, want to thank you all for being here. And any other silly stories, any other craziness, so I stop blabbing and you guys
I
actually
have
get to say
another
stuff.
story. It's actually a hallucination one too. It was during my heart stuff. But the cancer caused cardiomyopathy, and then that led to heart failure. So it was after I got surgery for my LVAD, which pumped my heart for me. I don't know what med it was, but I was having hallucinations, and I was actually the one that figured it out because I was just like, mine were like really realistic. Like it was of my doctor saying things, and I was hearing them say things, but my eyes were closed, and I'd open them and they weren't there, and I'm like, I don't know, seems a little sketchy. And then I'd say, did you just say that? And they said, no, nobody said that. And they're like, yeah, you're hallucinating. And then I was off those beds, and I don't know what happened, but I had the worst nightmares and stuff. And then I also couldn't sleep for like a week or 2 weeks. I'd sleep like a couple hours a day, and I'd just be up with my night nurses just watching TV. And they're like, you need to go to sleep, MacKenzie. And I'm like, but I'm not tired. It's just like the weirdest time, honestly. It was, I don't know, it's just a weird time. Like you're not sleeping, you're not doing anything. And then there was also a time where I was just in the worst pain ever. I was like burning. Like I felt like I was on fire, and it was like hard to even communicate because I was just crying. And I told my nurse, I was like, well, she was there, but I wasn't allowed any meds because I had hallucinated. They took all my pain meds away. And she was really honest. She was like, calling the doctor. She's like, you better get in here because this girl is in pain. She needs pain meds. So they gave me like a 1 dose of morphine, which fixed it. But I was still not happy that they took all my pain meds away, even though I might not have needed them.
Yeah,
And
it's
then,
tricky because I feel like we need the medication, you know? Like you were saying that you were in a lot of pain. I was in a lot of pain. Like I was asking for it. Like we know that we need it, but then also I feel like we know not even like the repercussions, but we know it comes with it. You know, like we're very familiar with the fact that it's disoriented, like the hallucinations, like it's just a lot. So sometimes it can be difficult to like accept that too because you know you need it, but also it can be like how you were saying, like it's you're like trying to grapple with reality too because these medications are really strong, like everything that they have us on, and it's something that we don't talk about enough, and it can be really scary, like to not know where you are, if what you're hearing is actually what you're hearing. Like it goes beyond little men running in your room. Like sometimes it's just like it's in here, and it's hard to explain to other people, and you know that you don't want it to keep happening, but you need the medication. So it's like hard to balance, even like for doctors and stuff. So I hope that also people who watch this podcast are also like doctors and such that they see like from our point of view, like this is how it feels for us, you know, like this is what goes on in our head. And this is why it can be kind of scary, but also this is why we need it. And it's just so important. Like Mia explained it perfectly. Like I wanted to circle back and say that you were very eloquent with how you said it. Like I couldn't have explained it better. But you're totally right, MacKenzie. Like it's so weird, like how you're saying you're hearing your doctors and stuff. Like I've definitely had instances like that where my eyes were closed and I heard stuff. You open your eyes and you're alone. So it's just what's real and what's not. What about you, Gillian? Did you ever have any experiences with too much medication causing anything like that?
I don't really recall hallucinations, but I was like 11, 12 years, like I turned 11, 12 years old during treatment. So I wasn't really noticing all like the changes that were happening to my body. But my parents were pretty much on it like really quickly. I can't snap. I don't know why I did that. But at some point, like at
We'll
some
tell the
point,
editors to just add the snapping noise in for you.
yeah, just add it in. I can kind of do it with my right hand. Um, sorry, back on track. My mom was really on it. Like at some point, I just was like, could not stop crying. I was like, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And my mom was like, she wasn't like, she kind of understood why I was so upset, but like that would kind of happen like sporadically. I'd be upset for like maybe a day or a few hours, and but I was like upset for like a long period of time, which was concerning for her. So she was like, I think it's the new medication that you're on. Like, she caught it really quickly. I was like, I wasn't even thinking about the medication. But you know what? Now that kind of makes sense. And so, like, she talked to my doctor. They took me off of it. And then all of a sudden I was like, huh, like this is actually a lot better. And I think like this is a part of like what a good lesson is for people who may be going through treatment now is like advocating for yourself. It's just like it's so important as a patient. You like it's a skill that you have to learn, and it's also like a life skill that you people should have, especially since osteosarcoma affects people so young and cancer affects people when they're so young. Like these kind of things, like telling your doctor or telling your nurse, hey, I think something's wrong, is like that's just so like important. Another thing that my mom caught was that like this isn't like hormone or emotionally related, but like at some point I had to get a platelet transfusion. And then this was like the first time I got a platelet transfusion. I was like with one of my favorite nurses. Everything was really chill. I was feeling great. And all of a sudden my nurse comes in, she looks at my face and she's like, "You're like so swollen up. Like my face is like a balloon." And that's how I found out that something in platelet transfusions just makes my whole body like a marshmallow. So they gave me a lot of Benadryl. I don't remember really much after that. Maybe it's like the Benadryl cloud fever that we were talking about, but then I was fine. It was just like a really strange experience because like how can you be allergic to something that's in your body? Is it like something they put in the platelets to make it preserve longer? Like it was just a weird experience because I wasn't
It's it,
allergic to any other type of transfusion.
it's interesting that you'd say that because I also had an experience like that. I don't remember if it was platelets or whole blood. It might have been both, but I would get like transfusions, and every single time, like actually in my chart, it says I'm allergic to blood because I would just like how you're saying, like I would swell up and I would get red and I would get itchy, and I was just like, that's what I was saying too. I was like, what could possibly be in this? Like something that's already in our body. They're like trying to like give me the good stuff, and my body just doesn't want it. Like it's just so weird to think about how the things that are supposed to help us can also like negatively affect us like that. And just felt like I felt betrayed. I was like, you're supposed to be helping me, blood. Like, what's going on? Why are we doing
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. I feel like this is like a little bit off topic, but you guys probably know like the feeling after you get a blood transfusion and you're just like, wow, I feel like really good for like a whole maybe a few hours and then it goes away. But
Yeah.
those like few hours feel so good.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I remember afterwards because the reason why was because obviously when we're going through chemo and stuff, our white blood cells like do not exist. Like they just always at zero. Like that's one of the main reasons why you get like a blood transfusion. So I know exactly what you mean. It feels so good afterwards. But I feel like for me, like afterwards, that feeling of like, like I feel good was so clouded because I was puffy and I was red and I was itchy.
Do you know where they sourced your blood from? Because maybe it was around Halloween time, and I know that Spirit Halloween takes over so many buildings. So, like,
That's
maybe
a
they
good
picked up
point.
fake blood?
I think so. Whatever they put in me, like maybe it wasn't real because like I don't know, but just I mean my body didn't like it. I felt kind of good, but then also like I didn't look good, and that was kind of sad.
I might be dating myself here. Um, there was a bit of a resurgence of it, but I know you all are probably at least familiar with the Twilight Zone, and I feel like that just sums up hospital life so well and just treatment life because it's like it seems like things are normal and then just random small weird things will start to happen. People won't believe you with stuff, and then like I don't know, it just feels very trippy, and it feels like you constantly or you feel like you're the crazy one in one of the episodes where you're like, no, something's wrong, something's amiss, something is, and people are like, nah, you're fine, you're fine. And I feel like that is just like the story of osteosarcoma because so many of us get diagnosed when we're growing and when we're playing sports or when, we're just being active young people. And it's just so scary that, suddenly we go from, playing sports, um, like soccer. No. Suddenly you go from playing sports, and just having growing pains to getting a rod hammered into your leg and all these different surgeries. And it's just like, they were right with spooky, scary skeletons. Bone cancer is terrifying. Like, it's just kind of like bone chilling. And I don't know, like just hearing all of your stories today, like we've all been through so much, yet we all have such good attitudes about it. And this is completely random, but I feel like we should all create like some sort of band called Benny and the Mets. Just because of all the Benadryl experiences we've had in our experience. Well, I've had a lot of experience with metastases. I mean, I've had it in my lungs, my scapula, my femur, and it all started tibia, my T7. Like it's just been everywhere in me. So I'm just like, my skeleton just really, really does not. So it's like anytime I see bones, I think osteo, not Halloween. So I think it's really funny seeing, like MacKenzie, you're wearing the skeletons with the Santa hats, which I love, by the way. That is totally a vibe. But yeah, it's just so weird that we've been through all of this, and then so it's like this is what real life horror is sometimes, and sometimes it's also real life comedy. I like to describe my life as a dark dramedy, but we try to make the best of everything, and I feel like that's what Halloween at its core is about. Is it's leaning into the spooky, and there are so many different cultures that kind of celebrate rebirth and death and all these things, and I feel like when you're diagnosed with osteosarcoma, death is something you think about a lot. And I just love that so many cultures have taken kind of the spirit of that and have raised it to the celebratory event. And somehow that led to us dressing as Mr. Clean or Pipple in the hospital, or shark attack victims, or all the other incredible costumes that you all came up with, or that, it's just a wonderful thing. And I love that we are all here making it better, as cheesy as that is. And I just really want to thank you guys for being open and honest and sharing your stories, and happy spooky season.
Yeah,
happy spooky season. Sammy, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, thank you for joining us. Happy spooky season, everyone. Stay safe out there if you celebrate Halloween. Also, we'd love to see your costumes. Yes. Costumes need to be shared, and I will send you guys pictures of my Charlie Brown costume, and I would love to see pictures of Mia's shark attack and just everyone's creativity and stuff. Like, this is how we push through the bad with like humor and with the good, So thank you all for participating. Super excited. Love spooky season. I hope that eventually the LA area and just California in general, like, starts acting like it is autumn, because it's ridiculous that it's like 107 right now when I'm trying to
wait for
embrace
January.
like the fall. Yeah. In January, that's when we'll have our
January,
autumn.
February are only 2 months where it drops below 70 sometimes. I feel like when it's like during the day, like during the mornings, it can get cold, especially in the desert areas. But anyway.
Absolutely. But again, we can't stress enough how appreciative we are of you guys coming on here and being vulnerable and open. Like, it truly does make a difference. I remember being in the hospital and I would actually listen to the OsteoWarriors podcast. So we are reaching an audience that really, really needs what we have to offer. So thank you all again. Enjoy your spooky season. Happy early Halloween.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. We appreciate it so much. Happy spooky season. Happy autumn. Happy Halloween, happy everything. And from all of us here, and that's the tea.
That's the tea.